So those guys were wonderful in terms of mentorship, and they kept an eye on me. And again, they didn't have to.
Hmm.
That's the one thing that another thing that I noticed. They didn't have to. They were already well on their way. No particular specific gain from mentoring me, but they did it.
Hello, everyone. This is author Tim Brown of the book Boys Won't Be Boys, and talking about helping young men live an uncommon life in a common world. And today I'm blessed to have with me our brother Fon Holloway. I've known Brother Vaughn from a ministry at church, at First Church of God, and just have watched his walk during that time. And I wanted to have him on a little bit to talk about mentoring and how important that is as we prepare this next generation and how the responsibility for men to take on that role and coming alongside these young guys and helping them achieve those goals and plans that God has for them. So, Brother Vaughn, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, Brother Tim. This is an honor and a privilege.
Yeah, I just wanted to get you on to talk about, and I know your early experience growing up in Philadelphia and persons who came alongside you during those early days. Take me back to I was watching the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. You know, they were talking about him and Jay growing up in Philly. I listened to him. And now I got a real Philadelphian who can tell us the real deal. How was that growing up in Philadelphia? And talk about some of the men who came alongside growing up in the neighborhood.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I grew up not too far from where he's talking about. I grew up in Southwest Philadelphia. Grew up as my mom's baby boy. Uh, Even though I had an older sister, she was gone from the home probably about age 5 for me. So I kind of was raised alone with my mom. And as you said, growing up in Southwest Philadelphia, all of the challenges and excitement and everything else that goes with urban living.
Mm.
And so, my dad wasn't in my life, but one of the things that my mom was very strategic at was exposing me to men through various methods. First of all, in my neighborhood, there were men present on my block, and I grew up on a block of row homes. As I remember, I took one friend home from college. He said, "You live in the projects," But I lived in a row home community, about 62, 64 houses on the street, and even though I didn't have a man in the house, there were men in our neighborhood. So when I look back and I think about immediate mentorship, I had Mr. Gill and Mr. Morton, and some of those men in the neighborhood who just by their presence became an automatic mentor to me. So those were the guys who kept us straight on the street, made sure we respect our mothers, make sure we pick up the trash we make on the block, and things of that sort. So initially, right there on the block, we had mentorship just by, if nothing else, example. Men going out and going to work, that right there was mentorship. I never saw a man laying around not doing anything. Every man on our block went out and went to work. So I would say that was my first level of mentorship, just not even intentionally, but more indirectly by their presence. Then later on, as I got older, of course, my mom was a church-going woman, and got me in Sunday school pretty early in my life. And matter of fact, Brown must be a wonderful name because Deacon Arthur Brown
All right.
is what was the deacon in our church that lived about 2 blocks from me. I walked around to his house every Sunday morning and got in his car and drove to church, to Sunday school. And in those car rides and waiting for him at his home was the mentorship of a lifetime. He's the one who taught me how to shake a man's hand firm, how to look a guy in the face, and that means you respect him and yourself. He taught me how to tie a tie. He taught me the importance of looking good, keep your shoes shine.
Right.
And he had a walk about him that just made me feel like I'm somebody when I'm with him. And so a lot of times you'll hear me talk about old Deacon Brown in my church. He was a heavy influence and probably never really knew it. It was just something he did. He had a genuine interest in the young men. His Sunday school class was young adolescent boys. And when we was in his class, there was the learning of the word, there was the learning of respect, and there was a man that we could count on that wouldn't judge us and put us down. All he ever did was put stuff into us to let us make us be better young men, and to know that we need to shoot for positive things in life, and we need to stay out of trouble, keep our nose clean.
Yeah, that's good. There's a word that jumped out at me. There's two things jumped out at me. You were sharing that. One was about seeing men in a positive way, just going to work,
Right.
just being going to work. And then the other thing you talked about was that whole respect thing, that whole respect. And I think men are always looking for respect, and it's always good for young guys to see a man that they can respect.
Right.
By the way they live. And they don't have to say anything, just that man's presence, just walking in the room. And like you say, you being connected to him empowered you.
Exactly. I felt good about myself just because I was with him.
Right. Yeah, that's what's so important for these young guys today. It's just the presence of a man. Let's talk about your college experience. I know you attended Wilberforce University. How'd that come about, and how was that experience?
So for me, college was, I always tell people, if you think of an analogy of a nut, I was a nut. A nut has all kinds of stuff in it, but until you crack that nut open, you don't get to enjoy the fruits of the nut. And so I was that nut, and I was bold enough to leave the city and go away to Ohio, which at the time I had never been too far away. So I thought I was going real far away. It was just the next state over.
Right.
But I went to Wilberforce University, as you know, the first privately owned Black institution. I had learned about its history and wanted to be a part of something that wasn't too big for me, because a lot of my friends went off to some big schools or some big money schools, and the money ran out, or they went somewhere and they were just a little guy in the crowd, and they came back home. So I had enough awareness that I wanted to go to a small school. And then, coming from a family that was rich in our heritage and in Black history, when I found Wilberforce, I came right away. I mean, I didn't even tour any other school. I just went there. And when I got there, when you want to talk about knowing right away that you're into something special, I can remember seeing my mother be okay with leaving her baby boy there, because there were people there that she knew was going to take care of them. And so mentorship started right away. I can't say that I really recognized it right then that it was mentorship, but there were people on staff who really just embraced me. And it was a lot of women too, but there were also some key men in the mix. My house director, he was a guy who, for some reason, he just took me under his wings. Probably after my first semester or two, I became a resident assistant, on the housing staff, and was given that task of leadership because this gentleman believed in me, and he saw something in me, and he wanted to nurture it and grow it. Our president, after my first year, was a man who was very much, President John Henderson, he was very much into the young men on campus, and encouraging us to be the best that we can be. Our co-op director, Dr. Anthony, he was another guy. He expected the best from us, but he taught us how to be the best. He didn't just give us an expectation and not help us develop into that expectation. So he helped us find jobs. He helped us get our resumes together. He taught us how to interview. He taught us how to represent ourselves when we're in front of potential employers. And so with that, throughout my college career, I was given leadership opportunities, resident assistants, resident director by my senior year, senior class president. I was president of my fraternity. And all of that was as a result of men and women, but men encouraging me and telling me, you can do this. You can do this. And they weren't afraid to correct me and give me a firm, stern hand when they needed to. But most of the time, I felt like it was very much encouraging and empowering. So it was a great experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I tell people, between God, my family, and my fraternity, I wouldn't be the man that I am.
Good. What are some of those qualities that you learned in that you try to pass on to the next generation? Some of those things that you were taught.
Well, one thing that I picked up on right away is it's not just about me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whatever you do it for a couple of reasons. Of course, you want to be successful,
Mm-hmm.
but why do you want to be successful? You want to be successful so you can help others. And I picked up on that right away because I realized early on that these instructors, these administrators, these men, it really was nothing for them to gain from it, at least from a young man's perspective. You know, they were already established in their life. So I noticed that they weren't selfish, and that taught me one quality is unselfishness.
Mm-hmm.
Another one was, you know, hard work, you know, stay focused, you know, and have a goal or something to shoot for. Always have something in front of you that keeps you focused, or at least when you get unfocused, it's something that you can zero back in on and get back on track. And I saw all of those men as someone who had a focus. Their focus was to groom and raise up and educate young Black men. And that was their goal. And so I noticed that, and I realized you got to have a goal. The other thing was no matter what comes your way in life, you can make it. It might take a little longer. It might take a little more grind, but you can make it, because I saw those men go through a lot. You know, in this world, you know, Black men are a threat to some. And so they went through a lot of challenges, you know, just working at our university, and dealing with the naysayers and all of that. So it's so much. I mean, I probably can't even think of some of it, but consistency is another one. They were consistent,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't give up.
Mm-hmm.
They were persistent, and they were consistent, and they didn't give up on us. And so those are just a few that come to mind right up front. And I think a lot of that is in me because of these men at all stages of my life.
That's good. That's good. Those are some good words. Those are some good words, and just some good, not just words, but they were examples as well. You know,
Right,
sometimes we see a lot of your guys talk a lot, but
right.
seeing that example in front of you, you know, is so powerful. So as you transition into the work world, you know, you transition into that. Uh, how was that transition? And I'm sure there's some another group of men or women that came alongside you during that time. You was a young guy coming out of Wilberforce, you know,
Right,
big DCSC coming to the government. You know?
right. So my early on in my career, and I got to tell you one bad part of it that really will highlight the second part of it. So my first job, I actually took in the government was in Charleston Air Force Base in South Carolina. And I went there, and I was a young Black college educated man, and walked into a workforce that had never seen a young Black man that looks like me. And they weren't ready. They weren't ready. I worked for a guy, and he just, I felt like he didn't care nothing about me. I was a young Black educated man. He had never experienced that. And they threw me in the corner and literally put a stack of government regulations on the desk. And he told me, ain't nothing I can do for you until you learn those regulations. And the dude, he would barely speak to me.
Mm.
You know, he would barely speak to me. And then the rest of the workforce was pretty much women. And a couple, they saw what was going on, and they tried to encourage me and everything. But there were no men except for this guy. And he was the big dog, and I reported to him. And no love, no encouragement, no nothing from him. And so after about 4 weeks of that, I decided I'm getting out of here. You know, and I called up the Air Force headquarters that had recruited me, and I said, hey, I need a transfer. And, you know, they offered me a couple of locations, and I ended up coming back to Wright-Patterson in Dayton, Ohio, or Fairborn, Ohio. Went into that environment, totally different experience. I came in, the people were excited about a young college man coming in, and the people that I would put with to train were folks who were excited about helping this young professional get started and getting on his feet. And I remember it was two men in particular. One guy's name was Ken Harris, and there was another guy named Julio Gonzalez. And they were both senior managers in the place. They were both, one was Black, one was Hispanic. And them guys just took me under their wings. I remember Mr. Harris telling me daily what to do and what not to do. Don't put yourself in this situation You know, even when it came to socializing, he was like, I don't care how beautiful a woman is around here. You know, you can find a woman somewhere else. You keep work. You know, and I remember Mr. Gonzalez teaching me how to go negotiate buying my first car. You know, and he told me, you go in with your number and you stick to it. And he told me exactly how to navigate through that whole car buying process. Now, right there, I'm telling you, these guys were excellent on the job, but they cared enough about me to help me in my daily living and mentoring me and, you know, finding a rental place to live and a car to buy and how to deal with some of the things that you have to deal with in life. So those guys were wonderful in terms of mentorship, you know, and they kept an eye on me. And again, they didn't have to. That's the one thing that another thing that I noticed. They didn't have to. They were already well on their way. No particular specific gain from mentoring me, but they did it. And so that started me off. I worked there 3 years, and then I came to Columbus to DFAS. And the same here. Now my mentorship is a little different here in terms of I did get mentorship, but it was more from a peer level because there wasn't a lot of Black men in higher positions. So a lot of us were at various levels in the entry level. I mean, not middle management and maybe the next level, but not the highest level. So we mentored each other. You know, I get a bump on the head, we sit and talk at lunchtime and we find out how you don't get that bump on your head. You know, we had to brief somebody and we would help each other with, you know, when you brief this guy, these are the things that you want to make sure you mention. These are the things you don't want to mention. You know, be punctual because this guy is very time conscious. You know, when you write, make sure you check your punctuation. I mean, that's the kind of mentoring that we did for one another because we knew we had to stick together, and for us to be successful, that is what we need to do with one another. And then we all graduated into mentoring other folks coming in under us. So, you know, we got involved in recruiting. We got involved in what we called our Leaders in Motion program. And I'm pretty much the only one still involved with that. But I have invested into younger professionals just like I have been invested into.
Yeah, that's the key, just passing that on, you know,
right.
You were mentor, so to speak, and making that same investment into the next guy coming along. So as we conclude, I want to ask you a couple things, couple challenges really. One is naturally a challenge to men, you know, to mentor, to help some other guys, but the other one is to young guys, because I think sometimes we have it's really just a different generation, you know. When you have some guys who think that, well, I don't need all of this, you know, I got it together, you know.
right.
Yeah, I'm the man, you know. Well, speak to that to these young guys you're seeing come in as far as being able to accept and be willing to receive the mentorship. And then lastly, issue that challenge to men to mentor.
So to young men, I would say, if you want to be all you can be, it would be foolish not to accept the wisdom, the experience that men have, and don't look at it as somebody just trying to come and tell you what to do. Yeah. In most cases, when folks are sharing wisdom and knowledge with you, they're trying to encourage you, empower you, and at times even protect you from doing some of the knuckleheaded stuff that they did on their path to where they're going. Now, everybody's journey is their journey, but you can always benefit from the wisdom of someone who is further along, who is where you want to be, or at least where you want to be on your way to where you want to go further. So don't look at it as someone just trying to tell you what to do, because most, or I would say all genuine mentors are sincerely trying to help you be better at whatever it is that you want to do. And the other thing I will say is, remember, mentoring goes both ways. So whenever you get in a mentoring relationship, even though that person might be older or more experienced, there's something that you know as a young man that's going to teach them and help them in their daily walk now too, because we have to learn how to interact with one another. And you have some things, some qualities and some knowledge that an older gentleman can learn from you also. So we're never too young to teach and never too old to learn.
Good.
Now, the second thing to the men is stop waiting for the perfect time. There is no perfect time. Just do it. just get into action and sow some seed into some young folks coming up, because they need it. And if you're honest, you needed it. And whether it was formal or not, or whether it was direct or indirect, you were mentored along the way. And if nothing else, you owe it to our generations coming up. And they need to know that we care, and they need to know that we want to invest in them, and we really genuinely want them to be successful. You know, I was always taught that every generation behind you should live a little better than your generation. And the only way that happens is for us to sow seed into them and add to what God has gifted them with, that may take them to that next level. So stop waiting for the perfect time, take the action, and you know, invest, sow that seed, and it will come to grow into something.
That's good stuff. Well, Brother Von, I really appreciate you taking the time today to have this conversation. I consider you one of those iron sharpens iron brothers. You know,
I appreciate that.
Man, come alongside, and we have to sharpen one another. And I want to challenge everyone listening, and particularly mothers or fathers who are looking for a mentor or some mentoring for their child. There's a lot of great organizations. I know the fraternity. I know Von's a member of the Alpha, they had Alpha Esquires and other fraternities, the Kappa League and whatnot. They all have good opportunities for young men, and to see men in a positive light. And so I want to challenge everyone to take advantage of those opportunities. You know, take advantage of the opportunity here in our community, in our city. There's my brother's keepers. There's all kinds of opportunities, but you got to be willing, as Von said. You got to be willing. You know, It's going to take some effort now on your part. On your part as young men, you know, to seek out those guys, because they're there. We're there to help you, but you have to do your part as well. It's a two-way relationship. So, Brother Von, I appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to seeing the great things that God will continue to do for you and your family.
So thanks, Brother Tim, and again, I consider this a privilege to get on here and speak about mentorship.
Be blessed. Have a great day.
All right, you too.